father, he was born in Puerto Rico, moved up to New York, New Jersey, back east, and he was young. He wound up going into the service, military army, and when he got in the service, he came to Seattle. He was stationed at Woodland Park. That's where he met my mom. My mom was born in Seattle. She was Dutch. My dad's Puerto Rican. They got together. I got 8 brothers and sisters. Yeah, and we lived most of our life right here in Seattle. I think from time to time my dad tried to take my mom back to New York, New Jersey, and that just didn't work out. She didn't like that out there. Yeah, he got into fighting because he was a fighter as a kid. He didn't. I think he won the Golden Gloves and he won a couple other things, but he got into it. And when he came out here to Seattle and had his family, one of my brothers became a fighter, Jesse. And my dad was his manager and trainer, and it just started out like that, and it just got bigger and bigger for my dad. He became. He actually got with Angelo Dundee, partnered up with Angelo Dundee on a couple little fighting ventures, and he was big into it. Not a boxer in Seattle, but he was a manager and a trainer, and he was well known throughout the boxing world in Seattle. For years he was into it. He ran the Seattle Eagles Boxing Club at 7th and Union for years. There was years ago. There was a big fighter here in Seattle, Boone Kirkman, really popular, heavyweight champion. He fought all the big fighters. He fought George Foreman and numerous fighters. He was big for Seattle, and my dad was involved with the people that were his manager and trainer. My dad, as a manager and a trainer, could not promote. So I got a license, and I was kind of the promoter, and we would put shows on between another fellow and myself, and then my dad's fighters. We tried to promote some of his fighters in these fights that we had years ago. Seattle was a big fight town years ago.
I have a store downtown Seattle called Leroy Menswear, and I do business with Joe Toro. In fact, Joe's one of my best customers. I like him a lot. I met Joe at least 5 years ago. Came in with a friend of his, and his friend talked him into buying something uniquely different. And now Joe comes in, and I don't have crazy enough for him anymore. He's bought everything that I sell that's uniquely different, and he's gotten to the point now where he actually takes it and embellishes it on top. He puts unique on top of unique. Joe's a really nice guy. He's been a great customer, and he's always looking for different. And it's getting harder and harder to find something that Joe likes. There used to be a guy that came in here who was who had a gym up here called at the Eagles, and his name was Joe Toro, and he used to bring these boxing, different people that worked for him. They were professional boxers. He'd bring them in the store and introduce me to them. And anyway, he was a really nice, laid-back gentleman. And years later, Joe came in with his friend, by the way, and he introduced himself as Joe Toro. And I said, I know a Joe Toro, and found out that that was actually his father, who used to come in here years previous. Really nice guy. Joe came in here with a guy named Kim Ferrison. He's the bodybuilding shows. He's an announcer for those. And so he's really into the unique, crazier stuff I sell. And he's the one that kind of kicked Joe into buying some of the stuff. And now he's got more stuff than Kim does. He's been a great customer, and I really do consider him a friend. Thank you.
My brother was called the Emerald City Raging Bull, and he was well liked around here. He was a good fighter, And so that kind of put our whole family involved in it. I tried to box years ago, but it didn't work out. I had some bad habits. I would close my eyes when I threw a punch, and I'd close my eyes when someone threw one at me. So I was like Ray Charles in the ring, and that didn't work out so good. So that was really bad. So I didn't like to fight too much. Unless I was on the street sometime, I'd have to do that once in a while. I got involved with the fight game, but it was not my priority. My priority, I guess you could say, was on the waterfront. I became a longshoreman back in 1969 is when I really got into it, but in 1961 I was a casual. I worked as a casual on the waterfront, then I went into the service, and I was in Vietnam a couple times and did my 6 years in the service, and when I came back, I was able to get into longshore kind of on a full-time basis, and that's where I wound up for 50 years. Well, if you look down there now, you see all them big cranes, the big container ships that come in. When I first started down there, you didn't have them. You didn't have any of them cranes. You had some funny-looking things. They looked like dinosaurs on the docks that that were what represented the cranes in them days. They had very, very few containers when I first came down there. And the changes were just, throughout the years, big time. Because what used to be done with your hands and your back now is done with machinery. Big difference. These ships come in and load many, many times more cargo in 3 days than it used to take us to load in 3 weeks. It was nothing to have a ship here for 2 or 3 weeks loading. And because everything was stowed below deck, on deck, one box, one case, one drum, one whatever at a time. And so we used to send out of Seattle, we worked at Fisher's Mill, and they would send grain, flour, bulgur, grain to India. It was all, they called it handshake from the United States, free to these countries. And them ships sometimes would come in and we'd work day and night for 2-3 weeks to load these holds, one bag at a time. Some of them bags weighed 50 pounds, some weighed 110, and some weighed 140. And so, you name it. Years ago, all that cargo that you see in them containers used to be stacked in warehouses. There used to be a lot of warehouses on the waterfront on these finger piers. Because when a ship come in, they had to put that stuff somewhere where the weather wouldn't get to it, so they'd put it in these big warehouses, and then the truckers would come in and pick the stuff up and take it cross country or wherever it had to go. Or vice versa, they would bring stuff in and we would put it on a ship. So it's pretty interesting, especially the big change. Now they only have, like, I'd say you had American President Line, Pier 5, you got Terminal 18, SSA, and you got Terminal 46, that's Hanjin down by the stadium, and then you got Terminal 30 with a big China shipping line there. That's all that's in Seattle now, whereas before you had numerous little facilities and lots of little companies where now they've all kind of merged and become big companies and big ships, and everything's big nowadays. But yeah, we got a lot of cruise ships where we didn't have them years ago. I was actually involved with helping get them here years ago. We only had 8 or 9 sailings of cruise ships a year. Now we're in the 200-300 every year, and that creates nothing but big money for the city of Seattle and the surrounding area. You name it: hotels, taxis, public market, Nordstrom's, gas stations, entertainment. I mean, it's a multi-million-dollar industry for the Port of Seattle, big time. Airlines, you name it. I have a little thing I got going down on the docks. I still stay amongst the working men down there, and I like to be involved with whatever's happening on the waterfront that I can. That was a big part of my life for 50 years. It was good to me, and yeah, I still enjoy being around it. Big changes, a lot of changes. For the better, I guess. Knew a lady that told me at one time that she had went to this Teatro Zinzani and really enjoyed herself, and that I had to go because it would be right up my alley. I happen to really enjoy good entertainment, and when I went by the place, it was like a big white tent on the outside. It was up on Mercer, and it looked like something. I thought, what the hell is that? I can't imagine what it looked like. Maybe there was some kind of belly dancing or some kind of entertainment like that, and I thought that from India or someplace, and I wasn't really excited about what I saw, so I thought, well, we'll just pass that one up. So I just let it go and never thought anything about it. And later on, the woman asked me if I had went. I said, no, but I went by. I seen the place, and it really didn't excite me. And she said, oh, man, you got to go. And I said, yeah, okay. And I just let it go again. Well, years later, I had done business from time to time with a place called Frederick Cadillac on 6th and Battery. Well, they tore that car dealership down and was building a new building there, and I noticed it was Teatro Zinzani. I thought, oh, here we go. What the heck is this now? And I knew that it was what my lady friend had told me about, and it looked like something that would interest me a little bit more, so I went and asked about it, and the lady at the ticket office tried to explain. I said, well, look, I'd like to take my stepdaughter to something nice for her birthday. And so within minutes after talking to the lady, I shelled out a fair amount of money for something, and I had no idea what was going on. As a matter of fact, it was fairly expensive to the point where I asked, what the heck do you got going on here? Because that's a lot of money. And she tried to explain, and I said, hey, okay, because I like to take my daughter someplace nice every year. So as I got my ticket and started to walk out of back to my car, I noticed I read something on the back of that ticket, and it said, you might be seated with other people. And I thought, no, I don't want to do that because that doesn't interest me. I did that at Benihana's, and I didn't like that. So I went to go back and say, hey, I don't think I'd be interested in this. She said, well, you've already purchased the ticket, so we can't give you a refund, but we'll do the best we can to get you a table by yourself. And I said, okay, sounds good. And really, I had no idea what was happening or what was the entertainment or anything about the place. So I just said, oh, and showed up later with my daughter to the event that night that we were told to be there. And there was a gentleman by the name of Steve White. He was the maitre d' at the time, and he met me at the door. And I like to dress up when I go to stuff like this. And he won my heart over when I walked through the door because he said, hello there, Mr. Toro. You look quite nice tonight. That's a great outfit you're wearing. And I thought, oh, how nice is this? You know, he says, you come with me. We have a nice table for you and your guest, table for two. And I thought, well, how sweet is this? You know, everything is really nice. And I went inside, and throughout the evening, the course of the evening I was amazed at what was going on in Teatro Zinzani's. It was the best night I'd had. It was more fun, and everybody treated me great. Everybody had a great time. The place had 300 people in there, and it was unbelievable, to the point that when I walked out of there that night, I had to try and find that Steve White because I wanted to apologize to him and whoever was involved with this place that I had made a fuss about sitting by myself. And I told him, I said, man, I'm coming back and I'm going to bring some people. This was the best night I've had in I don't know how long. This was a great show that you have here. I really appreciate you having a table for me, but next time I come here, I'll sit with anybody at any table. It was that good, and I really appreciated what he had done and how all these people had treated me. And it wasn't long. When I like something, I like to share it with other people. So I had groups of people come with me. Come on, you got to come to this show. You got to see this. You're not going to believe it. And I would sell tickets after tickets, and pretty soon, I became a steady customer there. And over the 15 years prior to the time that I worked there for them people. I've worked for them for 2 years now at the door. But prior to that, I was probably known as their best customer because I had went more time than anybody else had ever thought of going to that place. I had accumulated at least 400 times myself and a guest, my wife or a guest, at least 400 times. I see people that come in there and say, oh, I've been here many times. I've been here 10 times or 12 times. I thought, that's real nice. Anyhow, I was a record holder in Seattle and San Francisco. I remember there was a guy down in San Francisco that was Mark Stock, I think, and a few other guys that had been there many times, but nobody held a record like I did. And it wasn't that I was trying to keep track. It just happened that way. It became a part of my life where I liked something that well. If I'm going to spend money, I worked on the docks. I worked a lot, and I made decent money. And when I wanted to go out or do something, I want to do something that I enjoy, and that's what I did. I enjoyed Teatro Zanzani. It became a part of me after all these years, and you can't beat it. The entertainers, the working staff, the people that work there, the people that put it together, right on down from the bar, the cooks, the backstage people, everybody. It's like a family. I became part of that family.
Well, Joe's improved my style sense because Joe always wears basically zoot suits in really flashy colors. And he's always wearing 3 diamonds every time I see him. And it makes me feel kind of shabby. So as a result of it, I went to Seagulls in San Francisco and I bought a zoot suit, and I'm proud of it, but I'm still working on the 3 diamonds. How did I meet Joe? Well, Joe used to buy all these tickets to come to the show and invite his friends to come. And these weren't just a couple of times. These were tens of times he was coming, to the point where I said, we've got to make a special table for him. So I went up and I bought some letters up at Nancy's Sewing Basket store, and we made a covering for his chair that has a big JT and very classic swooping lettering, so it looks classy. And then somebody else made a sign saying The Godfather, and we put it on his table, and it's been there ever since. Joe's doesn't come to Zanzani. He's like in Zanzani permanently. And now he's our greeter at the door, greets everybody coming in. It's important that you get welcome into any place you come to, and I can't think of a better guy to welcome folks into Zanzani than Joe Toro.
Toro. Isn't Toro love magic? Like beauty? Ты не ехал сюда. Не поняла. What do you can say about Toro?
Well, Jutaro's a very nice and kind man. Nice soul. He never lies. He tells the truth always. And he's my fishing buddy.
Yeah. When he's in audience, it means all will be good. He looks nice, suit. I can say he's even artist somewhere inside. Doesn't matter he was different professional life, but he has this kind of quality when what artists do.
To me, Toro is a gentleman, is a godfather of Teatro Zenzani. He is a part of Teatro Zenzani, well, what we would do without him. And what he would do without Teatro Zenzani.
I'd say that he always brings a great energy to the tent, and without him, something's missing. It's like not normal to not have him there. He's definitely special.
Happy person. What he do in life, he loves to do. He do his love. And because we feel his love, and we want to say, we love you, Joe! Very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's Saturday night at the Hacienda, and this man and this woman are going to show you how to get up and dance on the dance floor. Everybody, grab that birthday girl, Deborah, the matching colored lady next to the guy with the ponytail. My God, you could never set me free. My God.
After all this is about Joe, this would be our You are the most generous, kindest, sweetest man, fabulous person. Kind of sincerely. I adore you. You shut up.
I think it probably comes to your mind too. Somewhere there's a carnival with no workers.
The only man I've ever met whose generosity of heart is as big as his image. So, Cammy, my brother and I, this young bartender comes over and he goes, "Hey, what do you boys want to drink?" We're like, "We'll take some beers." The guy goes, "You guys have an idea?" And Joe's intimidating voice says, "That's not necessary."
Who the hell is this guy going up and down this ladder? Is he a foreman? So I talked to one of the guys that know him. I said, "Hey, who's this guy going up and down the ladders?" "That's Joe Toro. He's making a phone call." I says, "How many phone calls did this guy make in one day?" I says, "Yeah." I says, "How many times this guy to climb up and down this ladder?" And I got to know him, and now he calls me every day.
You're a great guy, and I couldn't be happier for her.
Sweet.
Never ever thought I was ever going to get married in my entire life until this man right here. I love you. I adore you. You make me absolutely insane. This is something really, really special that you have to have, and that you are going to have before everybody else because you have to be the first to have it.
Holy shit.
That is your very own Seattle Seahawks 12th-man Super Bowl ring.
Yeah.
Okay, honey, it's your turn to say something now.
I look down.
All right, here we go, ladies. Eyes right here. Eyes right here, ladies. Smiles. One more time, say yes.
Yes.
Here, everybody, nice smiles. Perfect. One more time, say yes. Yes.
Hey, Charlie, you know, every day I think about something. No matter what, no matter how bad things get, it could be worse. Think about it. You know what I mean? You know, another thing, Charlie, one thing you can never buy is time. No matter what, you can't buy time. So take advantage of what you got, boss.